about things like food riots and golden rice, and how it is having some kind of effect of shutting down research that's going to help feed people. Can you give us a response there?
Yeah. Labeling is, again, labeling is in 64 countries around the world. Labeling is available to 60% of the world's population. And research is in genetic engineering is as vigorous as in any discipline of agricultural science that there is. As a matter of fact, I have friends, conventional breeding researchers, who can't get funding for conventional and traditional breeding because all the money, all the focus is now on the hot new GE. So I see no correlation between labeling, transparency, and cutting off research. I can assure you, and of course we're having the Farm Bill debate right now in DC, I can assure you that there's no threat to the interests of these large companies in cutting off federal funding for more research. They are well established, well endowed, well represented down there, and this is not, to my mind, there's just no connection whatsoever. So I agree with you. Again, this is why it's so important for me to underscore. And again, when you're talking to other legislators, besides you, sir, I think it's important for you all to just don't get caught in this thing of we're trying to stop GE. That's not what this is about. By the way, we're not going to stop it. It's here. What this is about giving us choice. It's as simple as that. I hope I answered you. Other questions? Yes, right here.
So, is it possible, I'm fully on board, is it possible, though, that we may be looking at this the wrong way if there's that much money on the other side? For example, labels can be used to inform, but they can also be used to provoke an emotional buy response. I buy Stonyfield because it says organic on the top of it.
Thank you.
What if it said non-GMO on the top of it? Would we all buy something, prefer a label that read non-GMO rather than looking at below the trans fats and the calorie count?
Yeah, so it's a really great discussion, and it lets me make a point that I'm going to come to your question, but I want to come to it from this angle. A lot of people say, well, Gary's traveling the world, and you'll hear a lot of these folks saying this, because he's really promoting organic. He's promoting, the difference. And the reality is that most of my organic colleagues wish I would just shut up on this, because the threat of a non-GM product that is not organic being on the shelf next to organic is quite real if you're in the organic business. BST-free milk, a lot of consumers think it's organic, but it sells at a lot lower price than my organic, so it really doesn't ultimately help me. That's not the point you're making, but I want to explain that. But very simply, you make an excellent point. So organic right now is a $35 billion industry. By the way, we had to fight for a dozen years, as I'm sure our representative here knows, anybody who's been in politics knows, we had to fight for a dozen years to get organic on the federal label, to make it even a law. And the threat was, it's going to make all other food look bad, and it's going to change the nature of the marketplace. The good news is it's $35 billion in sales. The bad news is it's about 4% of total U.S. food. Okay, so the evidence is not really there that having the organic choice is going to sort of create a black eye for everything else out there. As a matter of fact, to be more precise and to be very open, I think it's no secret. There's 1,000 reasons to eat organic food, but there's one very, very good reason not to. It's very expensive. And for people who are on limited means or fixed incomes, or just any of us who are trying to balance our pocketbooks, I'll be the first to admit the higher cost is a preventative. And so this one of the three arguments they make here is, well, you've already got choice, you can buy organic. Well, of course, as Stonyfield, I'd love to hear that, but I know reasonably that the average person, again, 96% of people are not necessarily able to choose organic on an everyday basis. So the evidence is that no, the appearance on the label doesn't change. And by the way, how many of you look for whether your food's irradiated or not? I mean, maybe this audience does, but most people don't. Country of origin, all these things get debated. Back in the day, salt and fat, the folks who were trying to stop it didn't want it on the label because they were fearful it would stop people from selling. Well, it isn't the case. This just gets so into the weeds of what it is to be a democracy, doesn't it? I mean, really, this is just choice. And so perhaps for some it'll be a skull and crossbones. Perhaps for some it will cause an effect. Again, synthetic growth hormone being on the label, or BST free, even with non-organic, was effective in stopping synthetic growth hormone. I'll be the first to admit it. There's plenty of milks out there that say they're BST free, they're not organic, and BST free sales, absolutely did do very, very well. But the overall overwhelming evidence around the world is that there wouldn't be that cause and effect. Did I answer you?
I think so.
Okay. You had a question, yes?
From what I understand, other countries have done the testing and found that genetically modified foods are harmful. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of... Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Of course, my mistake. So the comment was that other countries there has been testing in other countries where it has, GE technologies have been found harmful. And can I comment on that? And, I think probably what you're referring to is one study in particular got a lot of attention, the Seralini study in France, which looked at rats. And unfortunately, it's one study. What happened was Professor Seralini looked at fed rats for 2 years on a diet of strictly GE corn next to controls. And the ones with the GE corn developed uniformly high rates of cancer and tumors and so forth, whereas the ones without had developed lower rates. And the study was, almost the minute it was published, it was instantly knocked by the scientific community. It was attacked on all kinds of criticisms. I'm not a scientist. I can't defend it or not. What I can tell, and this has happened multiple times, but I'm thinking this is probably the one that you've heard about. But I will say that one of the criticisms that was levied at the study I found really interesting, and it made the rest of the criticisms a little bit suspect to me, which is they said, well, they used the wrong rats. They used rats that naturally get cancer more than other rats. Well, these are the exact same rats that DuPont and Dow and Monsanto has used in their studies, I told you earlier that to prove that these crops are safe, the industry has to represent to the FDA that they've done testing on the same exact species. But the problem is that in the case, I know of Monsanto's study, because I've seen the testimony, they tested them for 90 days. The rats live for 2 years. So this is why I talked earlier at the very beginning, I said we haven't done long-term enough testing. So I can't weigh in one way or the other. What I can tell you is that there's a scientific constituency who does believe they've shown problems with allergens, they've shown problems with cancers. There's studies that are referred to. There's one that showed the tumors in pigs' livers or intestines. But then there's plenty of criticism of these studies on the other side. And all I can say to you is that I think that a fair and an honest appraisal of the situation is that we just don't know. And that we need more science, and we need longer-term science, and we need independent science. We need science not done or funded by the folks who own the patents. I know that seems like a really radical idea, but it seems sort of reasonable to me.